And so one thing I like people to know about is the difference between a 504 and an IEP. And so when you have little ones coming up, you might think that you immediately need to go to special education, and that might be true. But you might just need a few accommodations for your student. And if you need things like extra time or help getting from one room to another easily, things that don't require a lot of direct service, then a 504 will work for you. When do you need to switch over? When your student needs direct services, things that an adult needs to come and help your student with, that's when you should switch to an IEP. We call it specially designed instruction. When the instruction that's happening in the classroom needs to be specially changed to meet the needs of your student, that's when you need to switch to the IEP. You can only take your 504 accommodations to college, basically. And so all students are dismissed from special education from their IEP when they leave high school. And then the accommodations, you can switch over to a 504 and you can take them with you to college. And so that's kind of the difference between the 504 and the IEP. The relationship that you have with your IEP team is super important. And so how can we make sure that this goes as smooth as possible? And one that I like to do is, if your district doesn't already give you an agenda of the flow of how your IEP team meeting will go, ask for an agenda. There are a couple of reasons I like to have an agenda. First, it helps make sure we don't skip any important parts of the conversation, right? But also there's comfort in knowing what we're going to talk about next. And there's a little bit of comfort in knowing how what you're talking about now builds on the next piece of information. And you take what you talk about there and put it into the next piece of the puzzle when you're putting together your meeting. In our district, we require staff, teachers, related service providers, we require them to send drafted goals, drafted plans 5 days before the meeting. And the reason we do that is so that you have time to look over it and you can provide meaningful participation in your meeting. This isn't a requirement everywhere, but it's okay if you're used to showing up at your IEP meeting and you have no idea what they're planning, what they're going to propose, then ask for that drafted plan a week or two ahead and see if they'll send you those goals, the accommodations, what they think they're going to provide for those direct services. This is not required in my district, but I've been toying with the idea. And so as we're meeting in person more now in our district, I'm thinking about having them put, project on the screen what everybody should be looking at. So when we talk about the goals, they're projected on the screen so that you can look at them and follow along with the conversation. That seemed like we did that. A lot of our IEP teams did that over Zoom because you could share your screen. And so why don't we keep doing that? And some of our team members do that. Another thing is everybody is strapped for time, right? Even at school. And sometimes you'll feel like you have 1 hour to complete your IEP team meeting. So I like to make sure that our team starts with some things that are going well and some strengths about your student before they jump into, here's what we're going to do, here's what the needs are, this is what needs to happen. And so if for some reason the team dives right in real quickly and starts talking about, well, we're having trouble with this and we don't know what to do with this and here's where we need to work, then ask for strengths. Ask, hey, can you tell me what's going well and what my student is really, and how is my student really thriving right now? Oh, the dreaded conflict. Everybody will, you're probably going to go through some conflict. You almost have to. If you're really being a good advocate for your student, you're probably going to have some kind of conflict at the IEP table, and that's okay. And I don't want you to feel bad about it, but then I also want to give you some tips about how to work that system a little bit. So, it's so hard, but try to take the emotion out of the discussion. And so that's why it's good to see those drafted goals, a drafted plan ahead of time. So you can get really mad about, that's not what I want for my kid. And then you can say, all right, how do I get what I want for my kid, okay? And so if you can try to rein in that emotion, that's gonna help you. Remember that we're all here for a common goal, and that's your kid, and getting all the services that your student needs to be successful. I think about when my sister was in school and I never saw her. Now, granted, I'm a little bit older than your kids are right now, probably, and so school was different back when I was in school, but my sister went to the same high school I did. I never saw her before school, after school, at lunch. She wasn't included in the day-to-day activities of the campus. She was in a self-contained classroom. And so I remember thinking, how do we make sure that all kids are included? And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but that's where some conflict can come up. And so remember that when you're unemotional and you remind people of that goal, that we're just trying to get kids included as much as possible, and we want to learn from each other, then it will go smoother. When you're really mad and you really had it with this IEP team, I want you to think about, what do we agree on? And go ahead and remind yourself that there are some things that are going well. So highlight the things that are going well and that we all agree on. So I appreciate that the goals that you've drafted really seem to steer us in the right direction, but I'm afraid that the time you've proposed is not going to meet the goals, is not going to help my kid meet these goals. So how can we come to an agreement? So highlight what you like. I like the goals, but I'm worried about the time that you're presenting. It's always okay to ask for a break. When you start getting really irritated and things get heated, or maybe you're not, and the team members are getting heated, say, you know what? Can we take a 10-minute break? I'd like to go to the restroom, get a drink, and then let's come back to the table. And it's really okay to disagree. It's okay to say, you know what? I can tell we're not going to come to an agreement today. And I like this so much better when a parent says that, instead of holding us kind of for 5 hours at the IEP table. I say ARD, you know what I mean if you're from Texas, because Texas calls it something different. But when you're at the IEP table and you disagree, I love it when parents say, you know what? I can tell this isn't going to happen today. How about we come back in a few days and meet again? This is some of the inclusive programming that we do in Belton, Texas. And probably there's lots of places that do these things, but I wanted just to tell you about them. So if you have grand ideas and your school district is not doing some inclusive things, maybe you can give these as examples, and you might have to volunteer some time or rally a group of parents together to make it happen if your district isn't sure how to make it happen, but here are a few things we do. So we do a lot of partners activities, and partners for us is like if we have partners PE, then we bring a gen ed student who has volunteered to be a partner with a student with special needs, and we have PE together. So instead of modifying all the activities in one way to meet all the needs of the student, those partners really get to know our kids, And maybe if it's just a physical disability, they help modify the activity to meet this student's needs. But if this student has a cognitive disability, then this partner knows this kid and can alter the activity to meet this student's needs. And so it's like having a little mini partner, a paraprofessional, in the class to help modify the activities. We're going to do the Penguin Project this next school year. And the Penguin Project is a partner's activity, but it's for theater. It's an after-school musical that we're going to put on where a partner, and we're going to do Annie next year. So Annie will learn all the parts just like if we were in any theater, but her partner will be by her side to help her through any time when she forgets her lines or moving her where she needs to be on stage. And we're super excited about the Penguin Project. We do Special Olympics in our district, but you have to be 8 years old to do Special Olympics, and so we also do Camp Champion. And that's just kind of like a quick camp. So let's say we do Camp Champion at one of our high schools. We have the football players and the cheerleaders come, and all our little kids come, and they do kind of like a camp activity with the football players or the cheerleaders. And anybody can come. We figure out how to make sure everybody gets to participate. We do have a mentoring program in the district for students who need maybe a mentor from our university, maybe one of the football players there, or somebody who's in the education department there at our local university, and that's how we partner with our university as well. I've been thinking about when I think of a million things, and I could tell you all kinds of things, but I want to tell you a couple more things before my time's up, and I pass it on to Doug. One of the ways that I have been in a really uncomfortable IEP meeting, one of the ways that I've been kind of reined in is when a parent has let a student tell us about his needs or her needs. And so I was thinking about, I've only seen this once in my district, but when a parent let the student made a little presentation and basically said, here's what I need, here's what I want, here's what's stressful to me, here's my favorite part of school. And so this family made a presentation, put in some little snippets of videos of the student using her communication device, and even some outside activities. I remember she had a little video from learning her Bible verse for Vacation Bible School, and just bringing in something really personal to them and their family, but sharing that with the IEP team, that changes everyone's attitude sitting at that table. And so if you ever get the opportunity to share something really personal and that's not just education driven, I think it reins in that team and makes them think differently about, if you've met one special needs family, you've met one special needs family. They're all different. And so show them what your kids need. Okay, Doug.
Carrie and I are also switching off here, and I wanted to introduce you a little bit, but I also wanted to say I just had a moment where I was supposed to be here for this panel, but I'm also a carrier, and they're doing the carrier presentation next door, and so I had one of those moments that Cheryl up here I know relates to, is where you have to make a choice between your kids' health and our own health, and so this is one of those moments. I'm sorry.
I knew you couldn't stay off the stage for long.
But I did want to say, I think it's very helpful to get ideas for the IEP, because I know how stressful that can be. And we just switched school districts, and something that we did, we were given the tip to do a one-page sheet for our son Grant, and he was able to go to the school and go over that one page. If you look it up on Pinterest or on Google, it's called a one page, and it kind of lets your kid kind of give a little synopsis about themselves. So I think that's a great tip. And of course, Doug Levine is here. And yeah. Isn't that nice? You have a cheering?
I have one Doug Levine fan.
But,
I'll take it.
But Doug has, I mean, he's always been open to just giving us tips and ideas to help out. And anytime that we've struggled or had issues, he's always been so helpful. So I know he's going to have great tips, but he's also open to helping you guys in the same way he helps me, right?
I hope so.
Okay, yes. So thanks so much, and sorry I was a little late here, you guys.
Good morning. I am thrilled to be here in person with everybody. I do have to admit, I was really nervous coming out this morning because I feel like I've gotten really good at matching my shirt with pajama pants. And so I was like, oh, you know, people are actually going to see the lower half. I have to make sure that everything matches. So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. So just a really quick snippet background of myself, because I think that it's relevant in what I'm going to talk about. I do a few different things. I see kids in the home a couple of days a week, so I'm a PT that travels and sees kids for therapy in the home. 2 days a week, I'm a school therapist. I also work and help run the muscular dystrophy clinic in Austin, where I'm from. So the reason that I tell you these things is that I see things from all different perspectives. So I'm not just a school therapist and only seeing it from that. I know the struggle of the outside therapist, the school therapist, the clinic therapist. And I think one of the most important things that I'm going to stress today is collaboration. That's really, in the schools, I think it's important anyway that we all should be collaborating for the care of the kids, but especially in the school, I think that's even more important because there are many different moving parts, and there are many people that maybe have zero experience with Duchenne, whether it's a teacher or a PE coach or whatever. So collaboration is just really important. These are the things that I hopefully I want you to take away. I know that all of us here on the stage could talk about this school-related stuff probably for like 3 or 4 hours. There's so much information. So we're going to try to condense it down, but hopefully just understanding what the role is of the physical therapist in the school, what it is, what it isn't, because it is very different. My role when I'm a school therapist is not radically different, but the focus is different than when I'm seeing a kid in the home or I'm seeing a kid in the clinic. So understanding how to create a strong team for your child in the school setting, I think that's really, really important. And then what are appropriate goals? What are realistic goals for in the school? Because again, the school, the primary reason that they're there is for academics, and yes, we want to foster growth in all areas, motor skills and academic and speech and all of that. But the primary reason that they're there is for learning, and we want to help support that. What Jennifer was saying, we're a related service. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, we're considered related service. So this again is a difficult and broad topic because all of us are going to try to convey how things ideally should be. But I saw when Carrie asked, a show of hands, who's had a good experience, who's had a bad experience. I mean, there were equal hands, and maybe it was the same people that had also good experience and bad experience. We're going to talk about kind of how things should be, but I realize I've talked to a lot of you individually. Your experience is not always that way, but hopefully we can plant some seeds of information, give you resources. You can always reach out to myself. I mean, I give out my email and cell phone number to anybody that asks, and I'm happy to talk with you about anything related to school. So some general rules for activity, and these are really, these are geared towards the school, but they're really for anything with Duchenne. But You want to look at in the school the daily activity. So what that looks like, not just, oh, they're having to walk, a far distance from classroom to the lunchroom, or they're having to go, but really, what does that look like throughout the day? If they're having to change classes 7 times and they're ambulatory, and how much time does it take, or how much energy does it expend all throughout the day? Even little amounts add up throughout the day. So we want to look at all of that activity. Activities based on strengthening are not appropriate at any age. Hopefully that we all realize that at this point. But a lot of people in the schools don't. I mean, there are some really well-meaning people in the schools, but they don't understand. There are also some not well-meaning people that won't listen in the schools as well. I get that too. But like PE coaches, a lot of times, I mean, they're working with the kids on exercise and strengthening. And if they don't have a basic understanding of what Duchenne is and how it works, they don't have to be experts. But if they don't have a basic understanding, they might do the wrong thing. They might do something that harms your child. So the goals in school really should be around accessibility and independence. So having your child be able to access all areas of the school, or as much as what their day calls for. And so whether that's the playground, the bathroom, the water fountain, do they need something to... So the physical therapist is trying to help really kind of gear the focus towards how do we get them to access as much of the school as possible on their own. And if they need help, then they need help. Then we step in and say, somebody has to help transfer them for restrooming, or they need help getting to this or that. So we help problem solve all of that. And then promoting participation. So sitting in a corner with the teacher while everybody else is, Jennifer, Jennifer Wallace, the other PT, talked about this yesterday. Is that the same person? Same fan? Talked about this yesterday though, but it's about inclusion in the schools. So, Jennifer, you were talking about how you like way back when, that you didn't see your sister throughout the day. There wasn't inclusion. That wasn't how things were, but it should be how things are now. So how do we get them included? How do we get them sitting at the same lunch table as the rest of their peers? What do we have to do to minimize whatever exclusions there need to be? So, sitting with the teacher during recess while everybody is playing and they're sitting talking to the teacher, that's not inclusion. They might be limited in what they can do physically, but we need to be able to come up, the school needs to be able to come up with ideas so that they can be included. And this is doable, whether they're ambulatory, whether they're in a wheelchair. I see it in the school that I work in. I talk to other therapists. They come up with ideas for inclusion. And again, we want to avoid that repetitive muscle work. And so even if there's a lot of upper extremity weakness, a lot of reaching, a lot of, maybe they have a lot of weakness in their hands, and writing all of their work throughout the day is fatiguing for them. And this is different for different kids. What's fatiguing for one kid with Duchenne is different for another. But just looking at that, just making sure that we're minimizing the fatigue, that we're allowing for independence, but also allowing for accommodations where needed. So, I left physiotherapy. I did this a presentation in Uganda, and they call them all physiotherapists. So, same thing. Physical therapy recommendations in the school. What you should focus on. We want to try to stay ahead of the problems. I've talked to a few of you guys, and I know the problems that you've had in the school is when the school has not been proactive. They're waiting for there to be an issue. They're waiting for you to speak up and say, my kid can't do this, or my kid can't get to this. So having the school try to be as proactive as possible is really, really important. Coming up with a plan, restrooming is a big one, especially as the kids start getting older. And it's a complicated one. There's not There's not always a great answer for it. Sometimes the kids need to be transferred onto the toilet. Sometimes we use a handheld urinal. Sometimes the families have gotten, like for bowel movements and things like that, they've gotten them on a schedule where it doesn't really happen at school. But addressing it before it becomes an issue and a problem. What are we going to do about this? How are we going to try to solve this problem as best as possible? But also, how do we preserve the dignity of the child? So whether they can express their needs or they can't express their needs, we still need to treat them like everybody else and preserve their dignity. So it seems common sense to us about that, but I've seen it in the schools where sometimes they're just like changing a kid in the middle of the classroom, or they put like a little bit of a shield, but you can still see what's going on. So just making sure that we're addressing that. And that changes as time goes on. So what's working this year for restrooming might not be working next year. So just make sure, kind of prod the PT and, at the beginning of the year, are we making sure we have a plan for this? Is there equipment that's in place if we need it, an adaptive toilet or something with rails or something like that? Looking at the classroom setup. So if they're in a wheelchair, do they need a wheelchair desk? Do they need one wheelchair desk? Do they need one for every classroom? Can they get their wheelchair in between the desks? I mean, that's a big one too. In some districts, especially in the elementary schools, there are a lot of kids in the classroom. There's 24, 25, 26 kids in one classroom. The teachers are maybe doing the best they can, but they've never worked with somebody that's in a wheelchair before. Making sure that there's a path for them to get through, to get up to the blackboard, to be able to get up to the teacher's desk. If there are any visual issues, making sure that they can see the board, or they're just positioned where it's most beneficial for them. Again, energy conservation throughout the day. If your child needs kind of like the IEP process, if your child needs a break throughout the day, that's okay to ask for. 5 or 10 minutes, he sits in his chair all day, I'm afraid he's gonna get tight. Can we have him go to the nurse's office and just kind of lay down on the mat for a few minutes just to stretch out? So whatever's needed. Whatever equipment that they need throughout the day, so using a stander is beneficial for a lot of the kids. If it's still safe and it's comfortable for them to use, making sure that we have one. When are we going to use that throughout the day to kind of minimize the disruption throughout the day? So if they're able to do their work while they're in a stander, or maybe it's during rest time or whatever it is, but just trying to incorporate that throughout the day. Making sure that we're addressing any needs, any pain issues or needs that there are. I find that a lot of times the kids maybe are shy about that, at least the ones that I've worked with, about saying, hey, I'm in pain, or this hurts. They just kind of, to me, it's a little bit sad, but a lot of times they just kind of live with it and they don't speak up and they don't say anything. So making sure that we're addressing those needs if possible. Do they need to tilt in their wheelchair? Are they walking a whole lot throughout the day because they don't want to miss out with the other kids, and then they're cramping by the time lunch rolls around? Or are they coming home from school at 2:30 or 3 o'clock or whatever it is, and they're done for the day? They fall asleep. They can't do anything else. We try to conserve our energy so that we have enough energy throughout the day so we're not falling asleep at 6 o'clock. It's no different for them. So making sure that they have enough energy and we're distributing that throughout the day so that they can do stuff when they come home, play with their friends, have time with family, that sort of thing. And then just addressing the needs for a power wheelchair. This is just a difficult conversation about when to introduce it. There are benefits to walking. There are benefits to using a wheelchair. get some help in navigating that. Have the therapist or somebody call me, call Jennifer, but have somebody help you navigate that process, because there's not a hard and fast rule. When they turn this age, they should be using a wheelchair. Every kid is different, and there's pluses and minuses to each of those things. So again, what we want to focus on, it's not that clinic-based therapy where we're doing positioning or we're doing stretching. If we can somehow incorporate those things into the school day, whether it's during PE or whatever it is, that's great, but the focus should be on access to the school. So setting up the classroom, really looking at all of those different areas that they have to access. So not just walking from classroom to lunchroom, or using the elevator, if there's an elevator in the school, using the elevator to get from one floor to another, but really, on and off the bus, what does that look like? Do they have curbs throughout the day? Do, like our schools do where I am, and a lot of schools do they have that giant, like 8-inch PVC piping that goes all the way around? Can they step over that? Is it safe for them to step over that? Can they access the playground? That's really a challenge. The school that I work in, which happens to be the same school that Jennifer works in, they're fantastic. Every discussion starts with, okay, what's best for this child? But the playground is still a challenge. It's still difficult for access for these kids, because there's a lot of a safety component to the playground. They have to put mulch or pea gravel or something like that under the playground so the kids don't get hurt. That's really difficult for a lot of our boys to walk on. So it's not always an easy issue, but making sure that we're addressing accessibility in all these different areas. And then also minimize up and down from the floor, and this is usually more of an issue like in elementary school, and where at the younger grades where they're doing a lot of floor time. Just because the child can do something doesn't mean that they should be doing something. And so like in kindergarten and in preschool, even in first and sometimes second grade, they do a lot of floor stuff, right? There's floor time, we're getting on the floor. We want the kids to be involved with what's going on and with their peers. But that's difficult. If there's a lot of up and down, that's hard on their muscles, and it's just a potential source of damage to the muscles. So trying to balance that, how can we have them be with the other kids but minimize the up and down? Again, there's not one right answer, but just addressing that type of thing as well. And then for the older kids, and you don't want to think about this when they're 6 weeks from leaving high school, but we want to look at what's going on after that primary school stuff, the 12th grade. What do they want to do? Where are they going to go after that? Is it a work program? Are they going to a university? What supports can we offer them to make them the most successful as possible? But just addressing those things and addressing them early. A lot of schools they address like transition, like at the IEP meetings, they have a transition person that's there, like starting at age 13, so we're addressing those things. What is appropriate, and understanding what the goals are of the family, of the student. What do they want when they're done with school? So really looking at all of those things. In the workplace, how can we set them up to be successful, whether it's getting them the right things for the power chair, making sure that they have a tray. Do they have a power chair that has a stander? Is that something that they're going to need in the environment that they're going to be in? So that's really, really important. Transportation. Does the family have an accessible vehicle for a wheelchair? Are they going to be taking public transportation? What does that look like? Ramps, all of those things are really important. So again, it's not there's not a one size fits all. There's not an easy solution for all of these, but it's a conversation and it needs to be collaborative. Make sure that everybody that's on your child's team, the teacher, the PE coach, the principal, make sure that they have a basic understanding of Duchenne. And if they don't, we have resources on our website. There are videos on there about energy conservation and school-based therapy and equipment. There's information like basic, what is Duchenne? How does that, how does that work? What does that look like? Direct them to those resources so that they have an understanding of what's going on. I've done that in the school where I work, and the people that I've referred that to have been appreciative and said it really helped. It gave them a better understanding. So thank you very much. I'm available after this is done, whenever. If you guys have questions, stop me in the hall. I'm happy to answer.
Thanks so much. And he said there's resources, and I'm so glad you said that, Doug, because they're right. And there's also physical therapy certification courses. I said we switched school districts. We had 11 professionals from this new school system attend that online certification course. So it doesn't have to all be PT, because they also are just going to be giving an understanding about things that are good for our guys and things that aren't. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's also things like fatigue logs. I've used a lot of tools like that. So there are definitely resources online that Cure Duchenne offers that can help us make this positive. And finally, we have Miss Cheryl here, and she's coming to talk to you about the mom perspective of school and making it positive. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I might have done a little too much dancing last night. You may or may not have seen me, but my hip is like, ouch, today. But anyway, I'm up here anyway. So thank you for that, Leslie. I love that Penguin program. And when you said Annie, I remember Jake was in Annie. It was one of my favorites. And thanks for bringing up like having the child also start to advocate for themselves, because I feel like that's really important. So I probably know most of you, and I'm so excited to see you all in person. Just seeing you all just makes my heart so full, and so I'm so thankful for Cure Duchenne for having me here. So I feel like people always know me as Jake's mom, but I also have 2 other children. And this is us. So that is my husband, John, and that little guy in the front is Tyler. And Ellie, you can kind of see her. And then Caitlin is my daughter. Ryan is my son-in-law. There's me, that's my son, Cletus, and then there's Jake, and I'm always Jake's mom. My husband and I will be sitting at a bar, and they'll be like, hey, are you Jake's mom? And I'm like, yeah, my name is Cheryl, by the way. And my husband's like, yeah, and I'm just the tag along. I'm John, the husband. So I'm a mom of 3. I'm a Grammy of 2, which is one of my favorite jobs. I had no idea what Duchenne was until they told me my son had it. And I had no idea I'd be a carrier. I found out that I was. And my daughter is also a carrier, which probably was one of the most devastating news that I had heard. And my grandson Tyler also has Duchenne. But the good news is with early intervention, he's doing really well. Okay, I used to coach cheerleading, if you can imagine that for me. So we're gonna do a little cheer here this morning. So give me an I. I'm sorry, that you could do better than that. Give me an I. Give me an E. Give me a P. What do you get? IEP, boo. So it's funny, I saw this meme online. I'm like, okay, are you excited to go to your IEP meetings? Anybody? No, show hands. No, I'm not excited either. So in my first one, I was extremely nervous because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I don't need IEPs. I've never done them before for my other 2 kids. It's scary to think. And you have these goals and dreams for your child, and you want everybody to be as passionate about them as you. I found out that later in school they were, but not early in school they were not. Okay, so, oh, it did work. My face, I didn't think my face was gonna spin in. That's so cool. All right, so let me see. Do you guys all have a bunch of paperwork from IEPs and like filing cabinets or whatever? Right, this is just high school. This is just high school, and I actually laid on the floor to take a picture of it so it looked like a mountain. So this is Mount IEP, and I used to sign everything. I'm like, can we just do this electronically? Like, there's so much paper being wasted here. But Jake has actually started with his IEP before we heard Duchenne. So I have like years and years and years of this paperwork. And I'm like, when can I get rid of it? Like, how long do I have to keep this stuff? So this was when our IEPs were very wonderful. We had this amazing team in high school. And really, our PT, which is Jen, I can't show you who she is, but she's the one on the top closest to me. She was an animal for Jake. No one could touch Jake unless she trained them. Like, no one. She was amazing. She ended up getting us a stander, a cough assist. So in high school, we had some great experiences. We also had a SPED person. So she was sort of the person I would text and get information from. The nurse, Miss Emmons, we're actually going to go see her next week. Jake misses her. But she was amazing. And so Jake would go to her bathroom, and they would become quite close. And when he left the high school, she actually was crying. And she did this big post on Facebook. So I think our students mean so much to these people, and it's important to not forget that aspect of it. So I think that it's a team effort. And like, this was a good experience. I'll talk about the bad ones too, because I know not everybody has some great experiences. But as we had more time together, things got great. And I always want to say, like, Jake got into drama, and the drama teacher was at one of the meetings one time, and she had looked up Duchenne, and she's in the meeting crying. I'm like, whoa, 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 I can't be holding you up too, man. Like, you need to pull it together. I mean, she was a drama teacher after all, so, there's that. But it was really touched at how much, like, they cared about Jake. So the term IEP can be a daunting term, at least it was for me. I learned to be reasonable. I learned to not do mama bear and be crazy unless I had to. But I actually began just to be calm, sort of like announcements that were just like non-emotional, and I was very reasonable. I immediately found the champion on my team, and for us it was our PT, who we love very much. And then know what you're legally entitled to. And I don't know about you guys, but we have like a group in our town of parents that are special education parents, and they are a wealth of information. They've been there, done that. You don't need to recreate everything. They will completely help you through all of that. So know what you're entitled to. And then you always get a copy of the updated IEP. Don't sign it if you don't like it. It's okay. You don't have to accept it. You can say, listen, I don't understand this. I don't agree with this. Can we meet again and go over it? The old IEP will remain in place, right, until you sign it and it goes through. So I think it's always important where that says sign here, don't do it. Just wait and see how things go. I think for me, getting the emotion out of it was very helpful for me. My first few IEP meetings were not too great. The behavior chart, I hated it. I'm like, if I have to see one more, oh, he did this well, he didn't do this well, I was going to lose my mind. I don't think Jake cared for it either. And there were very emotional emails that went out to our district. When you're first diagnosed with Duchenne, there's some emotion involved in that as well, right? There's emotion. And my husband would send these just amazing emails, and I'd be like, I don't know how you can't cry after you read something like this. But we really wanted to get them to know what Duchenne was, and how it affected Jake, and how it affected our family, and sort of what we expected from them. So the experience with our school system was I tried to make friends with everybody. And I used to be in sales before COVID hit. I used to be in sales, so I made friends with the janitor, whoever. I made friends with everybody, including the superintendent. And what I would do is if things went really well, I would tell him. Because they hear about everything that goes bad, right? So I would say, hey, this was a personal experience that was great. They're also the ones that pay for the equipment, the paras and all that stuff, so I always wanted to make friends with them. I always made sure I had clear expectations when I went to the meeting, and having that agenda, beforehand to know what you're going to talk about was fabulous. I think you want to definitely teach these kids how to advocate for themselves, and Jake will tell you if you want to talk to him while you're here, they need to advocate for themselves because you're not at school all day, and they need to have a voice, and they need to have a voice forever, right? They need to be able to advocate for themselves everywhere. And then don't focus on what they can't do, focus on what they can do. And we always try to do that because a lot of people can't do some things, right? I'm not good at math and I can't sing very well, so I don't do those things, but there are some things that I do really well, so that's what I try to focus on. We try to teach them some life skills. Jake didn't know how to use a microwave in college. We always did it for him. His PCA was like, you don't know how to use a microwave? Like, are you kidding me? He does now. He ordered Chinese food on DoorDash and had to reheat it, so he had to have some help with that, but she definitely helped him. So I think it's important to do that, because when the cure comes, they need to be ready for the real world, right? So let's make sure that they are. And some elements of an IEP can actually follow to college. And I didn't know that, like the 504, the IEP, I didn't really know the difference there. But so when Jake went to school in college, there's a accessibility sort of woman that takes care of everything. In our case, it was a woman. And so he gets longer on tests. His books are not, he doesn't have to carry his books. So there are some things that can go to college. And it made sense with the 504 that they don't do PCA, paras in college, right? So we had to sort of to find all of those things. And I put this little I need, because I wanted Jake to tell people what he needed. And during IEP meetings, like in the early days, Jake would come in and look at the end of the meeting. And then in high school, he would sort of be there for the whole meeting because, I mean, he was going to be 17, 18, 19. It was time for him to start making some of these decisions on his own. So I talk about a lot of our really good experiences, but we had a really bad experience that I actually had to go meet with the superintendent. So Jake had some issues once he started on steroids in school, and I would always get phone calls, Mrs. Marazzo, he did this, Mrs. Marazzo, he did that. And then that's when my husband would come in with those beautiful emails and take care of everything with that. But Jake tried to kiss a girl because he liked her. And if she didn't want to be kissed, she could have pushed him right over, right? Like, all set. And it was like third grade, fourth grade, and it was like, I just love her, and I just want to kiss her. He ended up getting suspended, like an out-of-school suspension, and I had to go to the superintendent. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And it became this big experience, and I even had other parents that would be at meetings that were teachers at the school, and they would feel bad for her family. Not our family, her family. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, what? And so that was when I wasn't as reasonable as perhaps I got later on in time. But we ended up getting everything set up, and I feel like there was a vice principal that like kind of targeted Jake. Like he was in a situation one time where the kids were drawing guns, and they were inappropriate at school at the time. So they made the kid with Duchenne walk all the way to the principal's office. And the other two, and that was like elevator upstairs, the whole 9 yards. The other two kids, they came and talked to them in the classroom. Like, so I think it was really important to educate them on what Duchenne was, what it did to our family, and things like that. The good news, as time progressed, things got much better. So I just want to say that, like, even though we're very positive and whatever, we've had those dark moments where, especially in the beginning, you know, talking to his basketball coach, I just found out my kid had Duchenne yesterday. He's at a game. You sit him out sometime. You know, like, I don't even know what to say at this point. So I think it's so important for them to know what you're talking about. And don't forget, you're not just helping your kid, you're helping all the other kids that are coming from behind. And that's what I was always saying. This isn't just about us. This is about all these other people that are going to come behind us, and they need these things. Like, you know, and the whole inclusive thing that Doug was talking about, I loved, because when Jake was in drama, they played a game, and they're like, okay, everybody run up on stage and get a partner. So the kids ran up the stairs. Well, Jake had to go all the way to the back of the room, up the ramp, and then to the stage. And I'm like, why don't all the kids just take the ramp? You know, like you've all seen that shoveling meme where the guy's shoveling the stairs and the kid in the wheelchair is waiting over here. And, you know, the kid's like, hey, if you shovel this, we can all get up. And we were actually going to try a program in the high school where all the kids would be in a wheelchair all day. And they would have to go to the nurse's office to go to the bathroom. And let's teach these kids some empathy. And I always would say to Jake, and I'm sure you guys say the same thing to your guys, is these people will get so much from you. They will learn empathy. They will learn all these wonderful things. And I just think that's like super important. I think I hit everything. Yeah, so we always say ABA, always be advocating. Advocate for yourself, and you know, you should be good. And then, again, I can't tell you enough, teach your kid to self-advocate. All right. So here's the fun stuff. Okay. So Jake, in high school, I became a drama mama, and I was not a drama mama for any of my other kids. I even bought a T-shirt that said it, and like people would laugh at me. And we ended up loving musicals. And I said Jake was an Annie. He was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he was amazing. So here are some of the things that we have done. Jake wrote a book. Jake did a triathlon with me, if you can imagine. So like I said, if I can do a triathlon, you all can do it. I had my why, and I found out how to do it. Jake was the genie in Aladdin. Jake did a triathlon with his father, too. And here is them. Actually, I think John did like 28 minutes in a 5K, which I was pretty impressed with. Jake was on the Dr. Phil show. In case you don't know that, Google DMD teen on Dr. Phil, and you'll see it. And then Jake went to college. He finished his freshman year of college, and now he's home. And I'm not sure who wants him to go back more, him or us, because Jake was our last kiddo. And then these are some of his PCAs that he ended up getting. And then the one with the sunset, we have a beach wheelchair that's a power chair that can go on the beach that we were lucky that was given to us. And that picture just always, I don't know, made me happy to see him looking, at the sunset. And that's Plum Island, which is our favorite place in the whole wide world. So anyway, let them find their place, whether it's on stage, whether it's with a sports team, keeping score, being the manager. There's all things that they can do. Push them out of their comfort zone, and Jake will agree with me 100%. Because if I didn't push him out of his comfort zone, he would not have been on stage, he would not have do all these other things. And it's easy for us to do everything for them. And I tried to treat him more like I treated my other kids. Wasn't always easy, I wasn't always perfect, but I definitely did the best that I could. I'm going to be here all day today. I'll be here all day. No, not all day tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow. So if anyone has any questions, you want to talk to me, you want to talk to Jake, you want to talk to John, we're going to be here, and we're happy to share our experiences with you. And I think I did the timing perfectly.
Did it perfectly.
Look at that. I'm at 0. You don't see what's going on up here, but there's like a timer up here. And you're like, I could talk all day. If you know me, I could talk all day. So I'm going to stop now. But again, I'm going to be around if anybody has any questions. And thank you, Duchenne, for having us.